Going Beyond is a presentation of Beyond Housing, helping entire communities become better places to live with Rare Gem Productions. Reliance Bank, your locally owned hometown bank, is pleased to sponsor today's Going Beyond radio show. With 20 locations throughout the St. Louis area, Reliance Bank is making money a little friendlier.
Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
We're going beyond.
Today on Going Beyond, a deeper conversation with Maria Chappelle-Nadal, state senator from the 14th Senate District.
Hypothetically, if there's 7 schools within one district and there are only 3 schools that are unaccredited, we want children to have another option to go to the schools that are already in the district, so that they don't have to go far away from home. We see right now, as we are living the transfer program in the last 4 months, many of our students are coming back to Normandy. They don't care that it's unaccredited. They want to be around home.
Chris Krehmeyer asks about a host of issues for our region from the highest deliberative and legislative function of our government.
Beyond Housing is going beyond.
That and more ahead today on Going Beyond with Chris Krehmeyer, right after this. Reliance Bank is focused on meeting the banking needs of the entire St. Louis community. That's because Reliance Bank, unlike the big national banks, is locally owned and operated. It's run by people you know, and that's important when you're looking for a personal checking account that's really free, a mortgage, or a loan for your business. So stop in and introduce yourself at one of their 20 branches throughout the St. Louis area. Reliance Bank, making money a little friendlier.
Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hi, my name is Kevin Buchek. I'm the chairman of the Board of Trustees for the Village of Belnor. I believe that the problem facing St. Louis today is racial inequality. I believe that people in St. Louis should live together. We should integrate our society. People of all races, creeds, and economic positions should live together as one. And I believe in going beyond.
We're going beyond.
Welcome to this edition of Going Beyond. I'm your host, Chris Krehmeyer, President and CEO of Beyond Housing. And joining us on today's show to talk about a whole host of things relative to what's happening here in St. Louis is the state senator from the 14th Senate District, Miss Maria Chappelle-Nadal. Senator Chappelle-Nadal, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And for those who don't know, because I'm always amazed at how big your district is, could you maybe tell everybody exactly what the 14th District covers?
Yes, approximately 41 municipalities in part and in whole. I have 10 school districts. The district goes from Clayton to the south all the way to 270 in part to the north, and then to the Missouri River to the northwest. And I have about 6 big corporations in my district: Emerson Electric, Express Scripts, Build-A-Bear, and I have the airport.
About how many people are in that big giant footprint?
I have 203,000 people in my district.
That's a big group of folks that you have to represent in our state's capital.
That is
All
true.
right, so let's talk a little bit. We have the current legislative session has just begun recently, and I know one thing that is always near and dear to your heart and will be a topic of conversation in Jeff City this year is education. So you could tell listeners a little bit about kind of what you think might be coming down the pike, and clearly you are one of the most learned and articulate folks about how do we make sure that our children can be successful. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
As some people may recall, this summer, the Supreme Court decided that districts that have become unaccredited, the students may transfer. And that created a huge hole in the regional area because we haven't had transfers for at least 12 years from St. Louis City area. So we have a situation in statute. It does not explain where we should go from this point. The way the language was originally written, if you fall off of a cliff, this is what happens. But we were never supposed to fall off of a cliff. And now that we've fallen off the cliff, we're trying to make sure that someone's going to catch us and save us. So our responsibility in this legislative session is, one, to deal with the student transfers in both the Normandy School District as well as the Riverview School District. Both in my district, all of Normandy is in my Senate district, and part of Riverview is in my Senate district. But we should also be looking at some of the rural areas and also St. Louis City and Kansas City. We are just the area that is involved in transfers right now. Everyone has a different opinion about what a transfer policy should look like. And I'm of the belief that all children should have an opportunity to succeed regardless of where they are.
Right. So as a quick editorial note, just to make sure folks understand that the senator knows from what she speaks of, she's also a member of the University City School Board as well, and gets to tackle these issues kind of firsthand and with a lot more detail than a lot of her peers. So lots of bills have already been filed relating to transfers and educations. You certainly have, I think, one of the most thorough and comprehensive bills that is out there. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the key elements of your bill and what you think is really important about how do we think to move forward, because everyone wants to wring their hands about the past, but I know in your bill you want to say, okay, how the heck do we move forward for our kids?
Well, the first thing that we need to discuss are the commonalities between the bills. And I will tell you the low-hanging fruit in many of the bills that we are going to consider this year is that the State Board of Education should have the opportunity to accredit individual schools as opposed to a full district. Now, there are two reasons why the State Board would want to do that. One would be budgetary. And we already see in Normandy and a little bit later on in Riverview, we are going to have budgetary issues. But also, we want to be able to accredit individual schools because it gives children in an unaccredited district an opportunity to stay in the district and only attend schools that are fully accredited, if that makes sense. So if you are a Normandy school district, and hypothetically, if there are 7 schools within one district and there are only 3 schools that are unaccredited, we want children to have another option to go to the schools that are already in the district, so that they don't have to go far away from home. We see right now, as we are living the transfer program in the last 4 months, many of our students are coming back to Normandy. They don't care that it's unaccredited. They want to be around home. And so we just want to ensure that children have all the opportunities and resources available so that they can learn and be competitive with other students around the area.
So one of the things that I think everybody agrees to, whether you're from St. Charles County, Normandy, Riverview, or in the city of St. Louis, the preferred option is to have a high-quality local school.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of us when we grew up, that's kind of what we had. We went to the local school, and it provided a quality of education. And regrettably, those things have slipped over the years. And I know the folks at Normandy and Riverview and others are rolling up their sleeves and really trying to say we have to get back to that. But some of the things that happen in Normandy, and I know a part of your bill addresses this too, there are some environmental contexts relative to mobility rate and lots of other things,
transient populations
that make it hard to really judge, are the folks in Normandy doing a good or not good job? And it's hard to tell because of transit. So talk a little bit about one of the things your bill has in place that kind of at least acknowledges that. And we're not talking about lowering expectations for our kids or anything else.
Not at all.
We're really talking about being fair in terms of an assessment of the school district.
So currently, the way MSIP is the Missouri Standards Improvement Plan, it is the way that every school district is accredited. And right now, every student, regardless of the amount of time they spend within a district, is weighed the same. We all want to ensure that our students have full access to all the resources that are available and also have high outcomes. However, when you're in a high poverty area, you have students that come in after September who come in October, November, December. There's some kids who switch school districts even in the second semester of the school year. And so when each school district is being reviewed in MSIP, they're 100% responsible for a student who is a traditional residential student who's been there for 3 years, and they're fully responsible for a student who's been there for 2 days. Well, when we look at the transient populations in high poverty areas, what we see are percentages such as 25, 30, 35% in every single school where there are students who have not even spent an entire year. And so what I put in is a mathematical calculation that says for traditional residential students, we are going to look at their student growth as long as they've been in for 3 years or more. And we're going to weigh that 100%. But I say, because we have such a high transient population among poor families, we need to look at the student growth model for students who have only been in a district for 2 days, for 3 months, for 1 year. Look at that differently and weigh it less. So after a student gets to that 3rd year, they're 100% counted towards MSIP. What this will do, this calculation will give us 2 great numbers so that we can understand this data. One, we get to know per school and per district the level of transient populations and look at what the problem is for poverty. And obviously, and you work in the housing industry, housing is a big deal. And so on the other side of that, we get to look at the student growth for students who are traditional. And that allows the state board, it allows each community to know how their children are progressing, understanding there's a caveat because they're kids who move from school to school to school to school within a year. The
great thing about that, it recognizes that we want to hold teachers and administrators and school boards accountable, just like the folks in Clayton and Ladue and every place else. But we're also recognizing, let's have an apples to apples comparison to see how well you actually do the teaching and learning every day.
Absolutely.
By only saying you've had the child for 3 years, you should be able to see growth like all the other school districts who perform really well on the standardized tests. And the standardized tests, by and large, were structured for them and not for places of high transit and high mobility like Normandy, Riverview, Kansas City, and the St. Louis Public Schools.
Absolutely. And you're so correct because teachers get, a bad rap. But if they are able to distinguish their performance with students who are traditional residential versus transient students, it gives them an ability to say, hey, listen, when I have time to spend with a student in a classroom with whatever barriers or challenges they may have, here's what happens when they are a traditional residential student. But also understand that why is a teacher accountable for 100% when the student's been there for 2 days? You have no background.
It makes no sense.
You don't know where the student is coming from. And most of the transient students that we see, they're at least 2 years behind. And so if they've only attended a new school for 2 days or 2 months, why is a school district accountable 100% for that student?
Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, a radical thing in politics sometimes, we'll do some things that have a lot of common sense and make logical sense, right? So as the session gets underway, and again, for our listeners, you guys will meet through May.
Yes.
So a lot of work has to be done on a lot of different things. Again, as we alluded to, there's a whole bunch of different bills, and hopefully we'll see kind of where the commonalities are and where we go from here. As our listeners who care about this topic, and hopefully all of them do, because this is our kids and our future, are there things that they can do to get engaged and to be participatory in this? And if so, could you let them know what to do?
Know the differences between these bills. There are, unfortunately, some pieces of legislation that do nothing for districts like Normandy and Riverview. And I'm astonished that certain media entities have endorsed certain bills that do absolutely nothing for poor Black children.
Right. So again, if our listeners wanted to kind of be able to parse the differences, is there something they can do? Is there some place they can go? Is there a way to, again, have them be informed and have their voice be heard at Jefferson City? You clearly, have your foot in the right space. But again, if other folks want to have their voice be heard, is there something they can do?
Absolutely. The one thing I would suggest is go to mo.gov or mo.senate.gov and know what each of us as senators are doing. And I think for the House, it's mo.house.gov. And if you go to those sites, you'll get to see exactly the pieces of legislation that people have. You can also call me at my office, and my office number is 573-751-4106. And tell me what you think. Tell me what you're concerned about, what you're passionate about, and what you're willing to do. A lot of people have been sitting on the sidelines for years. Normandy was provisional for 20 years, unheard of. No other school district in the state of Missouri has been rated as provisional for 20 years. So we should have done something a long, long time ago. But it's up to the community to make a difference. And I know if we work together, we can get these kids back on track because they deserve it.
And on that very much positive note, we come to close. Senator Maria Chappelle-Nadal, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Reliance Bank is pleased to sponsor today's Going Beyond radio show. With 20 locations throughout the St. Louis area, Reliance Bank, your locally owned hometown bank, is making money a little friendlier.
Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
We're going beyond.
Going Beyond is a presentation of Beyond Housing, helping entire communities become better places to live with Rare Gem Productions.
Proudly promoting, presenting, and producing positive programming.
Neighborhood is where you live, and we want to keep it strong and vibrant. This is Chris Krehmeyer with Beyond Housing. We are going beyond.
Chris Krehmeyer, President and CEO of Beyond Housing. Located at 4156 Manchester. Phone number 314-533-0600. The only organization in the St. Louis region that offers access to affordable housing. Wherever we work, our goal is to help transform people, families, and communities so that they achieve the skills, strategies, resources, and commitment to succeed for the long term. See our work at beyondhousing.org. Podcast for Going Beyond can be heard, downloaded, and shared by visiting hallelujah1600.com. Listed under the music tab, on demand. Going Beyond is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions.